here.
1080p.
I think that Nova, yeah, they're a good team, but just a little bit. I'm sensing that blue bar is telling us something.
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right to talk up Nova eSports. They're a long-time mobile eSports team. They're very popular in Honor of Kings. They're very popular in Arena of Valor, where they ran teams. Actually, in Arena of Valor, they were one of the only Western region teams that ever went to an international event and contested with the Chinese teams. They represented EU for many years.
Gonna be the Riven lock-in there as well, TG. And I mean, Riven, we talked about that Baron lane. It's gonna be already taken into account. And I think this is very interesting. Ooh, the Gragas matchup, though. Could see a flex either in the mid. It could be flex in the top, also in the jungle. But the Galio lock-in makes me feel that it could be either that jungle or that Baron lane matchup. The Galio locked in for that mid lane.
Yeah, so the bans here are really par for the course. We're not seeing anything LPL crazy yet. And I really like the priority order as well from Nova. Gragas, Galio is very in line with both the global meta and what we've seen regionally for Asia. The thing that's standing out to me right now is Riven. LCK and LPL teams pulled out Riven much more often than competing junglers, or competing top laners, sorry. And it's a very solo carry-oriented character. And we're seeing that kind of reinforced here with the Ahri pick as well. These are picks that are very dominant in solo queue if you can snowball them, but they struggle in team play because they don't overlap utility. So what's going to need to make that happen is this Vi, which is a kind of weird utility-focused jungler for this composition. But I think it will enable them to go for these 3v3 picks really aggressively, because the Vi will be able to go in, knock people up, and you can follow that up with the Charm, follow that up with the Riven Assassination.
And that Akali locked in. I mean, in EU, if you ever watched any of the competitive EU scene, Akali is banned on the blue side or the red side 9 out of 10 games. Even more than that. I would say like 9.9 out of 10 games. It never gets through. But the fact that they're allowing it through with the Galio, now with also the Gragas, this is an insane team fighting composition. Whereas I feel actually what RSG are focusing on is that individual skill. They're not so much focusing on that team fight potential. What they're trying to do is bring through that early game power with the Ahri, the pushing lane against the Galio. They're trying to unlock their lane so they can actually roam, try to find potential picks, and maybe help this Vi to carry maybe that top side or that bottom side, depending on also what the ADC and support lock-in is.
I do think EU overvalues the Akali, and I'll yell about that till the cows come home. Akali is very, very good, but she is not even close to the best lane character that you can have. In this composition, though, she's fulfilling a role, because you have this very tanky front line with the Galio Gragas, and so you're looking for someone that can weave around the back of those fights and pressure any carries that are hiding at the back. What still needs to be drafted for Nova, they need sustained damage from an AD carry, and it looks like we've got it now as a Kai'Sa comes in. That was a very essential part of this composition that they didn't have and now do, and I'm still looking for their jungle pick up here. It could be that Gragas, but I was about to say I'd like to see something more early game, and we are going to get that in the Lee Sin. So, Nova's draft lines up perfectly with Western expectations. This is a very good draft based on the meta we have right now. What RSG have pulled out is really skirmish-focused, 3v3 heavy, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
I think that this Lee Sin going to be very dependent on Nova's success. If the Lee Sin can again be unlocked through that jungle side, can try to find those ganks in lane, brilliant. But I do feel that for this jungler, they are going to scale off, right? It is a Lee Sin. They're going to be gifting the kills, you've got to imagine, over to whoever they are trying to support in that lane they are ganking, and then going into that more armor build. I have seen the carry Lee Sin on Wild Race. I'm not a fan of it though, TJ. I'd much prefer that more support-based Lee Sin, have the power early game, yes, but allow the rest of your team, particularly this Kai'Sa, to carry you in that late game. That's where your scaling is.
I always say that the measure of a Lee Sin is the first 5 minutes. And if a Lee Sin can get into lane multiple times in the first 5 minutes and not just provide pressure, but successfully gank, successfully get kills, then it is very likely that Lee Sin will be able to snowball and run away with the game. And that synergizes very well with the Kai'Sa. That's why if you're watching Southeast Asia competitive, it is very rare that you see one without the other. Because Kai'Sa is defined by her first 10 minutes. She needs to get out and find kills early. So you have a very clear win condition for Nova, which is we want to stay long on this Lee Sin, get out onto the map, provide pressure, and provide opportunities for the Kai'Sa to snowball. If that all works, as you correctly highlighted, you bridge into a really terrifying mid-game around the Galio, around the Akali threat.
I think also the Akali, that is what the surprise is in this Baron lane. In that matchup again into the Riven, I still feel that of course they're going to be playing more weak side, but actually I feel that overall, the Akali, yes, they're going to be more of a nuisance in these team fights. Nova, of course, are drafting towards that more team-based composition, but actually the Riven, the extra CC very important, and that frontline tank very important through for RSG. I feel that if the Riven can be also shut down in that effect, then it could be up to that Akali to actually, when it comes to that team fighting, the Riven no longer able to frontline, and the rest of their composition not super as much tanky, I would argue, compared to the rest of it. I also feel that on the other end, when you look towards the fact that the Kai'Sa is scaling again, you can abuse that very early game from the Kai'Sa. The Kai'Sa isn't as strong until she does get her killer instinct come level 5, until she comes into that her own in those team fights. And that's why I'm really looking here for, particularly the fact that also RSG pick up the Braum speaks very early game lane dominance to me.
I'm very excited. This is going to be our very first look at the Spark Invitational. Winners here move on towards that world
not
slot.
Us.
Sorry?
That is not us on the screen.
No, hang on, I've got you. Hang on. Boom. Does that make you happy?
Boom. That makes me very happy. I am a police wolf.
And we were talking a lot about the Nova comp. I do also want to pass our gaze over this Resurgence composition as well. Resurgence, of course, a Singaporean organization. I don't know any more about this team, but I know that previously they fielded a roster that had a ton of Thai veterans from the Arena of Valor scene. And we don't seem to have seen any holdovers here. I believe Love C did play AOV competitively, and that's about it. So I don't know where this new roster came from. This could be an entirely Chinese mainland roster or anything else.
Yeah, I think there's going to be very interesting to see through this first game, like exactly what these teams can offer. I think also looking towards Nova from the EU scene, I mean, yes, you can't really compare, but at the same time, it's still very interesting to see how aggressive they were in their competitions. I'm expecting maybe something similar, just to I'm kind of edging its draws, but I am expecting something similar. Also, the fact that when you look towards the LPL, definitely a League of Legends PC, they are very aggressive region as a whole, and they do like to roam a lot. That's also what I'm looking for. And the fact that they picked up the Lee Sin, yes, the fact that they picked up the Vi, they're going to be looking for these early ganks, and you can see towards the fact that Lee Sin is roaming towards that bottom side, the Vi also roaming towards the top. They also have picked up their scuttles by now as well. As you can see, Lee Sin confirming that bottom side scuttle too, but both deciding to farm that early game jungle. And more interesting to me, of course, it was the Gragas as well, shifted towards the top side, and the Akali mid. The Galio is the support here for the Kai'Sa. I think that is nice because that offers actually the Braum a little bit less of influence in that lane.
Yeah, I'm a giant fan of Galio's support. I think he's one of the best supports right now. And it's especially good at denying exactly what Resurgence want to do with their composition, which is going to be having these skirmishing dives come in. Galio's AoE taunt is perfect to protect your carries from the kinds of things that an Ahri, a Vi, and a Riven can offer.
RSG as well in the top side are just going to continue to farm up. The Grag is going to be met back in lane as also Galio jumping back forward too. You can see though, Lee Sin farming those Crocs on the top side, also Vi rotating down, so potentially you could see a gank in a world, but also the fact that the lanes are pushed up, it's just very well played for the fact that Nova are playing back towards their lane, slow pushing it, the same with the Riven here.
Yeah, Nova taking their time, playing this lane very respectfully. These are actually the most respectful lanes I've seen in Wild Rift since I watched the very first days of the Brazilian Pro League. We're just now getting our first kind of little bit of roam and invade from S12K, who just throw ward down by the buff. But otherwise, this is a very slow, very cautious laning phase. And as we talked about, I think that does benefit Resurgence a great deal, because they're looking to start skirmishing into Nova after the 5-minute mark, which we're most of the way towards right now. If Nova can hold Resurgence back in that gap between the 5 and 10-minute mark, then their team fighting will come online, and it'll be a win condition for them again.
RSG will continue to push, so you know that Braum, that Lucian, very oppressive early on, and particularly towards that first Drake, that's where we're looking at that oppression, that early game power that they are bringing to the table. Also the fact that the Ahri, very early game. I like that Lee Sin is heading towards this Rift-Held, because they know that in the event that they go towards the Drake, it's very hard for them to deal with that early game team fighting competition RSG has drafted, so they're trying to sneak away this Shelly, but actually, it's RSG who catch on to this, and they have now gone in for the engage. It will be the Riven that's stunned up for now, but it's turned back RSG towards the Rift-Held. But will the Gragas? Will the Explosive Cascow? Yes, they do. Now will the Smite come through? No, it's stolen away by Braum. Grand entrance in, but a Galio also Killer Instinct in from the Kaiser. But trying to go for one RSG flash away, but they split the fight. It's a 1-for-1 trade though for now, as it is the Akali going down. Love C will be confirmed. It is a 2-1 already, as the Akali will be also falling the size of the Riven. The Ahri now Nova. They're trying to go for the 2v1. Timeless pushed under its turrets, and that will be all here. The Lee Sin did go back down also in the end of that fight, so it's just a 2-for-2 trade, 3-3 total right now.
Yeah, that was a very sloppy fight call from a Resurgence, because Nova are at the peak of their early game right now. One of the benefits that Lee Sin, of course, has over other characters is that he does a ton of early game damage just on raw stats. You also have Kai'Sa, who gets bonuses from her auto attacks. They're more powerful than other AD carries, so she has a massive advantage in the early game. And Resurgence opt to not only fight that, but you can see here, they step into Nova having position around the river. There's very little vision, there's very little control from Resurgence when they go in for this fight. So it's very easy for Nova to just define this as a front-to-back fight, where you can see long HUDs down the key targets very early on in the fight is blowing up the assassins who can do burst damage. And what's Kai'Sa doing the entire time? Well, you have absolutely nobody threatening Nova's AD carry, so they just sit at the very back of the fight, and Remake is free to free fire on all of Resurgence without any response. So that's turned into not only the Drake going over to Nova, but an incredible amount of early game pressure. The small joy, though, Wolf, is that in the middle of all of that, somehow, and I do not know how, S12K, the Braum player, managed to get the last hit on the Rift Herald.
Yeah, that's, I think, the one Hail Mary play that S12K can put down in this mid portion of the game. I think, though, the problem, right, that it's on the support, it's not on the jungler, so Braum is going to have to do a lot more roaming now at this point of the game to find that perfect opportunity for the Rift. But it's brilliant also play back by Nova, because they're just constantly pushing these lanes out by this point, so there's nothing given over for a Shelly play.
Yeah, I think you still can sit on top of this Rift Herald for another couple of moments, and ideally you want to throw it on the only player who's got an advantage right now, which is going to be towards your Lucian in the bottom lane. Farm them up and use them as your mid-game carry. I think you ideally want this Riven to be that, but it's not going to happen at this point. There's so much pressure up there from Nova, as you've just seen, and also they're already behind a kill.
Again, it's just the fact that Nova are playing ahead with a more scaling composition. I think the early game with the Ahri, with the Braum was very important for RSG to take into account. But instead, also in this top side, it's back into 1v1. Gragas still wants Love C. Now it's going to be the ward jump over. Sonic Wave lands, and it's going to be a complete wipe down from the Riven. Just gets absolutely executed. And back down towards the mid side.
And again, you can see that. It's okay, we need to shut down Love C during the early game, and we're going to do exactly that. Nova dedicating their Lee Sin's power spike up towards the top line, up towards that scaling threat, the snowballing threat of Love C's Riven. I do worry, though, they've let Timeless on the Lucian kind of free farm, currently got a 400 gold lead over Remake. So that's actually an incredible amount of gold to be on a Lucian at this stage of the game.
Well, we've already got a Solari charge blade as well. Combine that with the Essence Reaver, so that crit damage is disgusting right now at this point of the match. However, they do only have the first tier boost. I would like them to try get, whether they're going for armor, whether they're going for vampirism, it is up to them. Even potentially more those tenacity boosts, because there is a lot of CC as well, could be an option, considering that the explosive cask, the grand entrance, really is the stopper in RSG's composition, because it's so hard to engage in a fight, because you know that as soon as you jump in, the Gragas just ultis you, or the grand entrance just comes through.
So this Rift Herald gets thrown up here towards the top lane, where Loveseed can't even get in range of the turret. So Loveseed didn't get any gold from that. All the gold from that did go into CD, which isn't the end of the world, but Vi isn't going to be your carry. So really not a very well-used Rift Herald from Resurgence. At best, it's going to stabilize Loveseed a bit if they can get this turret in a bit. But Loveseed, because of that, is going to be up on the top side whilst this Drake starts, and it's an Infernal.
Yeah, they were hoping that maybe it drags a few of those Nova members in. Also, they jump into the fight. Culling already used by Lucian. It will also be the Glacial Vision, but it's Lee Sin, it's accuracy. They turn the fight now onto CD. Stuck in the pit. Vi has nowhere to go. See you later. Back in, and the Summoner's Pit is now Loveseed. Also stuck in the Drake pit too, but they will get away as the turn already back to the lanes comes through. Akali, little bit of dicing down with also the Shuriken. 5-point Shuriken will land through, and that's another 5-point strike. Third one to boot, and Riven falls once more. It just feels like Riven trying to rotate here, but they can't find any real push at all in these side lanes.
Yeah, I'm frankly very upset with Resurgence's macros so far. The way they're playing this lane, especially up top, is costing them the game right now. Because Loveseed, if you stay in that lane, sure, it's a weird Rift Herald timing. You're going to lose out on Infernal Drake because of it. But if that's the play, make that play. Lose the Drake, take the turret up top, get the first break bonus gold, stabilize your Riven. Instead, it's the worst of both worlds. Loveseed stays up top for the first half of the fight, arrives late, and then dies. Doesn't get the first break gold. And let's take a replay. Oh, this is the second half of the fight. That's not actually what I wanted to say. We do get a replay of Loveseed just being completely outstatted. The thing I was hoping we'd get a replay of was how they dealt with the steal attempt, where we actually saw a really synced up disruption from Nova. It was the Galio taunt from Yami, followed by Long doing the Dragon's Rage kick away, which was easier to land because of the Galio taunt landing. So just very synced up from Nova, very awkward from Resurgence.
Very awkward is also that first tier turret in the bot side will fall. Also the top turret in the side will fall, but Nova, but under a little bit of pressure, they have looked to dive on in, but that turret's still available for the rest of Nova, so you can't push it anymore. Maybe the turn will be there. No, they do back away in time, and it is that reset.
I will call it now. This game's over. It's time to GG go next.
Are we surrendering at this point?
Yes. Well, no. Never surrender your solo queue games. Anything could happen. In a competitive game, less so. Unless Nova make a truly astonishing mistake that they haven't telegraphed the capacity to make, they have completely neutralized everything Resurgence had going for them. I think Nova's mid-game teamfighting composition is much better, and you saw there the most fed member of Resurgence, Timeless, the Lucian, kind of the only hope for this team, not being able to get a kill onto anyone with full combo on multiple targets. And that means there's just no hope.
I mean, the Ari as well, trying to find out Rabadon's death cap is a spike. They are trying to burst down one, but we just can't. TJ, they're already getting blown up. Maybe the culling does something. Explosive cast back. Now C12K to support Golden. There's no front line. Flash back in. Akali tried to turn, but it's the Lucian who turns one back, and that is the power spike. Nova running for the hills is too so low. Remake Void Seeker, but yeah, this is the one they want. They're trying to find a Grag. Gets down low, health once more, goes back in, might have been a mistake, does survive barrier enough, and on the edge of HP, they do get away.
Really, really well played by Timeless, able to hover at the back of the fight and just get a whole bunch of free autos off. And once he kills Yami, you can see that Nova go, well, hang on a minute, maybe we don't want to just run into an even 3v3, because that's what that is, right? I talked about the massive amount of gold on Timeless. I don't think it's enough to be threatening, but it certainly is enough that once the fight's even, once it's a head-on-head 3-on-3, That's not so interesting to Nova. That's not a fight they want to take the risk of. So they kite away. They don't overchase. And I think that's maybe the most remarkable part of this. Seeing Nova, even though they are, I think, in a winning position right now, not taking that risk, recognizing they do only get more powerful as the game goes on, for now, until about the 20-minute mark, and being able to back away from the fight, kite it back underneath the turret.
This Drake, so important, TJ, though the RSG can defend this, because if the start of Regans, they can't defend this, then actually the Drake stacking becomes real, and the possibility of high true damage on the soul becomes real, but that damage enough almost onto Ari, the healing through saves him, back in return, forces him towards the top side, but it's the Lee Sin dragon kick onto Timeless to try to blow him up, but the barrier is too much. He still gets away anyways. Torn onto 3, but try to turn it, but they're just too low. They don't have the damage no more. They tried to burst Illusion because they couldn't. RSG, they take the Drake.
And actually, now I'm turning my opinion, because that is 2 fights on Nova failing for the same reason. And I do hope we get a replay of the fight proper this time. But all of the initial damage from CD landed onto Find. And because Find the Akali was so low, they couldn't gain access to the backline. So despite Timeless being incredibly low, as you may have noticed at the very end of that fight, Timeless is on maybe a quarter of his HP. It doesn't matter because nobody on Nova has access to him. So if they can keep neutralizing Find, keeping the Akali from punishing low HP backline targets, then Resurgence can just front-to-back fight this, as we've seen so far.
And it's brilliant focus because yes, you had the Gragas and the Galio, but they're being used defensively, right? The Grand Entrance was there used. The Gragas also Explosive Cask was used very early on to try stop that engage on from RSG. And yes, they were able to find a Sonic Wave, also Dragon Kick onto Timeless, but as you rightly point out, Find wasn't there. And as long as Find cannot get onto this back line, the fact that RSG win back-to-back fights because of that reason.
Yeah, and back-to-back fights as well where Yami goes down. Playing a support is rough in any version of League of Legends. Shoutouts to my support mains out there. But in Wild Rift, if you start losing chaining deaths like that, especially on a character like Galio, who's a little squishier stat-wise, it's actually going to become a losing fight front-to-back, just because the Galio is going to vanish before these fights begin. So you're really looking at Yizzo as the secondary tank, Yais, sorry, that Gragas needs to become another tank for the team.
And I think also just credit to the fact that RSG, they were able to nullify these lanes away from Nova. And we've actually been able to nullify that goal lead down to 2k. They've been able to secure a Drake away from it. Yes, I think it's still a world where Nova control these macro objectives. So the fact that they've got the Cloud, the fact they've got the Infernal, the quicker roaming, the extra damage, that 6% buff is still a lot to contend with as Nova do avoid out the culling for now. Akali on the bot side, you can see that they're hovering, but they don't want this fight.
I want to raise something that's actually quite remarkable. Lovesea actually has a gold lead right now. Over Yais.
Yes, true.
After an entire early game spent by Nova shutting down the Riven, Lovesea has earned out a gold advantage, and it's not significant yet. It's not an item advantage, but it does mean we're going to get a Riven here in the late game, and Nova have maybe missed their window, because I flagged earlier around the 20-minute mark, Nova were no longer being in control of the game. The reason why I flagged the 20-minute mark specifically is because that's when typically people are tying up in gold, nearing decent items if the game is splitting even. So I think item advantage being null across the board is going to mean that RSG still are in here with a shot if they can keep these fights skirmishy.
But also, stats don't lie here, TJ, and games usually here for RSG, they would end about 17 minutes, 32 in the game. Nova, 19 minutes, 45 seconds. And for Nova, actually, they love this early game. I mean, the fact that the Ari, yes, is here early game. Yes, you have the Vi early game, but these will start to scale off. The Kaiser is where it's really going to increase. Yes, the Lee Sin scales, but he's going to have that CC from Ari, though it was the defense now in. Void Seeker did land onto all of them. Here's the perks. It could have been Killer Instinct onto one, but we just cannot find it. And a regain, retreat through.
Yeah, remake, retreating here, recalling. And interesting
Break.
stuff again. A very weird fight from Nova as they're unable to gain access to the backline, unable to get onto those targets in the back of the fight. You want to see Timeless under threat from a composition like Nova has. Oh, they're starting this Elder here, positioning in the river.
Oh.
They're gonna force RSG to step into the river into them. They will have Remake here in time. He will get here in time. It's gonna be close. TP's in here as well. 5v5 probably for the game.
We can't get in, though. They can't get in the pit. Kaiser was not there in the fight. They recalled. Explosive Cask was brilliant. Takes out the stasis of Ari. But here the Riven jumps in under the turret. That first tier 1 doing work. But the Charm executing down the Gragas. Makes it a 4v5. They take the turret. And with that kill, this is the Drake turn.
And Nova just lose 3 consecutive team fights from a game-winning position. Net result, they're not going to lose the Elder unless they do something remarkable.
They know they had to get in. Lee Sin is still there. GA still available. But RSG turn once again are not going to give it to him. They force him back all the way up towards the north side. It is now the flash exchange from the rest of Nova. They do find one, but it's not enough. RSG, they're on your back line. Find has to try survive, but Akali is there. Akali has the damage. Low HP bars where she thrives. Lee Sin going in for the extra kill. RSG, they overstayed. It's going to be a 4th, an extra 5-point strike. Stasis or walk out. And Ari, they thought they could turn that fight, TJ, but you left Akali, you left Lee Sin alive, and they died all over your back line.
And everything you were hoping for suddenly falls apart here as exactly what we were talking about maybe 4 fights in a row finally breaks well for Nova. Find is able to access Timeless in the very first moments of the fight and just delete him. And the second that Lucian's gone, the second that backline is cracked, the Akali makes the difference. The Akali cleans things up. Nova get their 3rd Drake of the game. That'll be true damage from the Elder Drake as well, stacking on their first 2. And they're going to get the Baron. And so all of Resurgence's heroics around the team fighting, all of their mid-game power spike has just been erased.
The fact that RSG did so well, TJ, to lose it in the last second, one over-pushed fight. They thought they could go for it, but the core point of that fight was the Lucian immediately on that turn back from RSG got blown up. The Lucian was the first to fall in that re-engage, and that was the crucial pick that Nova were then able to turn it with, because there's no ADC carry there with that intense critical strike.
And we're going to keep pushing down the mid lane here for Nova. They've shown very good macro all game long, and you're seeing that again here as they escort 3 waves in simultaneously. The bottom wave is actually unattended, so it'll be 2 waves simultaneously. But that's enough. That's forcing Resurgence to play back behind their base. As the minion wave crashes in top, they'll shove in mid, and they've already got super minions chewing away down bottom. They'll get here eventually.
Still going to be now the top base opened up, top inhibitor down, Ari going so low, you can feel that true damage, you can feel that infernal Drake, and they're trying to go for the base. They got 3 waves, the super minis, explosive cask away from the Nexus. It is trying to be a split fight for RSG, but it's not enough. The Nexus just too squishy. And Nova, they take game 1 in the series. I think here we are here, TJ, game number 2, 1 up for Nova just now. And oh my days, here it is going to be an absolutely banger of a series. RSG, they were the favorites, but look at how that blue bar has turned at Nova. They are now the favorites going into the second match.
They played the game better. I will go straight out and say Nova eSports played game number 1 better from a macro standpoint, better from a drafting standpoint, to such a degree it should have been a 15-minute clean game, and it was only complicated by the fact that they couldn't win a team fight in the back half. Resurgence demonstrated an incredible capacity in micro, and that needs to be respected coming into game number 2.
They were respected, but they left away to Camille. That was the only change in ban. Switched it for a Vi on Nova's side, and they pick up the Camille straight away. In this Hextech ultimatum, so powerful, TJ, because not only does it lock down a member, it pushes every single one of the other members away. I think that this also denies here when it comes to Nova what they really want to pick. Again, though they do go back towards the same form with the Gragas, with the Galio, and I love that they pick out the Gragas again, because the Camille first pick is very counterable in the sense that actually the Gragas explodes the cask, you wait for it every time, you still use the Grand Entrance in defensively if they do decide to dive anyways, and actually you're able to completely negate this Hextech ultimatum every time it comes out.
Let's talk about this just from a team composition point of view, though. This is the second time we've seen RSG prioritize getting skirmishing, team-fighting carries, and it's the second time. I like that on paper if they can provide some territory hold, something they can get into an area and occupy. Last time that came from a Riven that somewhat miraculously came back into the game for Love C after an absolutely disastrous early game. I need to see something like it. Maybe a Jarvan would come out in the jungle here if this Camille is top. If it's not Camille top, then give me something like maybe a Garen that can be up there on the top side and be a tank for this team.
I think as well the fact that Lucian picked up once more for Timeless, very crucial here in this situation. I think the Timeless is going to be very impactful on the Lucian. I like that they're also picking away the Akali from Nova, but it is still the Lee Sin that gets picked up. But what they're trying to do is negate that backline offense that really Nova are bringing to the table. Lee Sin, I do think is slightly better here in this situation, though. Again, you can use the Dragon Kick against the Camille. It's just another tool. The Camille can't target down the Lee Sin because you know exactly what happens next. And even again, the situation for the engaged Dragon Kick away, one of those squishy targets. I love also this Varus lock-in because it helps just continue to pick down and lock down resurgent Regans Gaming squad.
So last game they had the Akali to threaten the backline. This time Nova don't need it because the Varus is able to access the entire backline of a fight at the trade of a little bit less sustained damage and certainly less survivability than a Kai'Sa. You have just the ability to win any fight that is front to back, any fight that is defensive. Nova are not going to lose a Drake or any objective this game if they get there first at an even gold stake. So
if they get there
if they get there first, and if they protect Remake, they have a Galio, they have a Gragas. Those are very good defensive characters to protect Remake, and I want to see them continue to draft in that direction. I assume that we're still waiting on our top laner here, or our mid laner. It could be either way, given the way that Galio and Gragas flip.
I love that Dynami was picked up last year by Resurgence because they needed that little bit of peel from the engage. You need a little bit of something that stops that front line diving in on top of you, like the Lee Sin, like the Gragas body slam jumping on board. You can use the Tidal Wave, more importantly, at the start of every fight, the Aqua Prison as well to bubble up any of those engaging members, like also that Garen, who will be jumping in, so it will be flexed towards a Gragas support. I like that a Gragas support comes through, though, because it means that you just have again that little bit of early game peel, a little bit of early game poke that can continue to allow you to control that bot wave, can continue to try scale up in towards that level 5 mark and grab those Drakes.
Yeah, so end of this draft, you have a very tanky, very defensive look coming out here from Nova. They're going to depend entirely upon that Varus to be their major source of damage in this kind of mid game, because Galio is your mid laner. Galio does a lot of damage, but not a lot of damage for a mid laner. And he certainly doesn't have backline access like an Akali does. So all of the game is going to be dependent upon the Varus, which means all of the game for Nova is going to be dependent on their ability to get to objectives first and play defense around the Varus as he holds those objectives. Luckily for Nova, game number 1 was defined by their outstanding macro. They played really well on the map, and I look for that here as well.
I believe that also it really comes down to how well actually Regans can lock down this virus as well. I mean, we have, of course, the Akali, we have the Hextech ultimatum. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I want to see really the Hextech, if not being used to avoid CC, also used to, after that CC lands, to try then to lock down those members. It can still be used as that pushback as well, even if it is cancelled. So it's all about buying time, particularly around those objectives as well. And you want to really see Regans be able to have those pushing lanes. Again, they do have that pushing mid lane. I think with the Akali, it is down towards, ideally though, if they can make that apparent enough towards the fact that Nova, they can't do the same thing again, where you have the mid game, they have the lead, you have to play that defensive real tactic. You can't use your composition, which is a composition it wants to really play around the enemy vision lines. It wants to try find those picks inside the brush and be that aggressive high up front squad.
I'm really paying attention as well as we peel towards the mid game, towards what comes from the Lucian Nami lane. Lucian Nami isn't going to be terribly effective defensively, but it's a full commitment towards the damage value of the Lucian in the mid game. It serves to extend the range of the Lucian a little bit. It serves to amp up the pressure Lucian can provide with his already quite damaging auto attacks during that mid game. So if they're able to survive this early game and then start snowballing, Timeless can, you know, even more so than last game, be the hard carry of this team.
And it is down to Timeless. You've got to feel again, Ari, the problem is scaling off in this mid to late game portion. I like also that a Garen was picked up last, because a Garen is going to provide a little bit of nullification onto that Akali in the top side. It means that it will continue to be difficult for the Akali to dive on in, because the Garen does have a lot of innate tankiness, particularly in that early game still as well. The Lee Sin though, that's what you're really looking towards again to find those picks, because Camille is flexed into that jungle. Means that the Camille, if they can find those again solo picks on the early game, once level 5 comes on board, once the Hex Tech is there, then you can start to really snowball that game. And that's what really, of course, RSG, they're looking to do.
And I am keeping up with our chat here on our unofficial coverage, or post-stream coverage of this event. And I would like to reiterate, because some people are like, wow, this stream is really low resolution. It is. That's because it's a Chinese website that they're broadcasting to, and I am not Chinese, so I can't make an account. I do have a WeChat that I have from when I cast Arena of Valor, so I'm going to see if I can use that in combination with a VPN to make an account and get you guys 1080p, but we are currently on 720p, which looks even worse than 720 because it's being captured and then streamed back to you. So it's rough, but we'll work on it, especially by tomorrow. I'll have had time to work everything out.
Yeah, there's a little bit of technical hip-haps on the Thursday, but a little bit of hip-hop here as Galio was charmed, so again, some trading. But I want to actually iterate how well this Galio is doing to control this lane. I mean, also, unfortunately for Ari, does look like it could be a gang coming in. Sonic Wave flash kick over, that was level 5. Ari only level 4, there's no infinite dashes. And Ari will fall as well. It will be a 1-for-1 trade. Camille was there to show up. Jungle for mid later. Fine. Confirm maybe back through, but here the Gragas is as well. And CD, we have to get back away, but the flash, not enough with the slow and the sweeping stake.
Hey, that's what the Lee Sin is going to be able to do during the early game. Get out on the map and find early advantages. Nova get exactly what they need at the cost of leaving this Varus alone, but that's something you can do with a Varus into a Nami lane. And that was my point of caution earlier when we were talking about the Nami. Nami actually is really good at pushing wave, really bad at confirming kills. Unless the Varus, unless Remake just like AFKs for a second, he's not going to be caught in a bubble. So the laning phase is going to be really safe from. And if Remake can just sit down there in the bottom lane and farm and gain CS, he'll be the dominant threat in the mid game, and Yami is unleashed as a Gragas to travel the map and be an additional threat on top of the Lee Sin during this early mid game. So look for Nova to do exactly what they're doing. Dominate here early, build out a gold lead, head towards their team fights, which look to be stellar, and the only wrenches that can be thrown into those works are going to be Timeless on the Lucian, hard snowballing, or a ton of pressure during those mid-game team fights from the Assassins. The entire top half of the map for RSG is that if any of those players on the entire top half of the map can get far enough ahead on an Assassin that they're one-shotting Remake at the start of fights, then it's almost impossible for Nova to win, but that is very difficult to do in these circumstances.
Regans, so we do start that first Drake, but we don't have Banami there. That lane is pushing against them, so Nova can answer back. And Nova continuing to go, but here CD is for the steal. Can they find a charm? It is the Camille who grabs it. The Hextech Ultimatum only will be delaying their death, but enough for the Ari to find one. Can they find the other? They look for the second. Long goes in solo, but at least Sin gets outplayed by 3 of RSG. A third now onto Yami. As the Akali revenge strikes back, and Yai's led to run for the hills. Perhaps the Rift Held they could go for with these respawns, but a brilliant fight, leading now in gold, and that cloud, more importantly, stolen away.
Hey, that's the dream. You know, that's exactly what I just said RSG needed to do. They're able to get something during the early game, denying those objectives I predicted would be so difficult to deny, and then also they start snowballing here. This is a really scary Akali now. And that's exactly what they need for this mid-late game. A very split fight here from Nova. They're not able to ever collect their forces around the defensive prospect of Remake. And that comes down to a very early positioning error in the fight. They start the Dragon before they know what RSG are up to. And their composition isn't so good at burning down this objective, especially not during the early game, but also it's Varus, so it kind of never will be. They need to win the fight and then take the objective.
Yeah, they had to play a little bit more patient there. They had to pushing lanes. I think as well, the fights, I want to note, are very much favored in the jungle towards RSG. It's more the lanes, which is really where Nova are looking to fight. In the jungle, the Aqua Prism becomes more effective, the Charm becomes more effective, the Hextech Ultimatum becomes more effective in locking away those crucial Nova members from engaging on in.
Yeah, you can pay attention to the Hextech Ultimatum as well for the Camille, because even if CD falls behind, Hextech Ultimatum, of course, reduces the damage output of whoever it lands on by a significant percentage. So if CD can get, during these late-game team fights, Hextech Ultimatum onto Remake, that's as fight-winning as getting the kill onto Remake. It doesn't even necessarily matter, because it will either force Remake to stasis or just hurt his damage output.
Hextech Ultimatum was used, trading out the tidal wave as Love C blowing up, kicked back, will jump though away in time, but the Ignite ticks them down. Galio will strike the killer regardless. Remake, Piercing Arrow will not land on CD either, but we find a pick, and these are the type of picks you need to make to really control back their lanes. Look at that lane state. You've got really here a slow push wave bot side, but again, it's a slow push wave towards the top, so you need to get this Rift held. You need to continue to clear through these waves. You need to get them back under control.
So I'm really glad I had the time to set up what the Hextech Ultimatum was useful for in that fight, because then we get a really good look at why there's no way to win that fight. Hextech Ultimatum is used there onto Find, who doesn't notice or care. Why would he? The Galio keeps on living his best life, and you know who else is living his best life? Remake, who's got the optimal Varus fight, sitting on the back foot, playing defense, not having to chase anyone, lobbing arrows, lobbing spells into the middle of a mass of people where he's finding multiple targets worth of value from each spell. That's just the dream for Varus, and it wasn't even from particularly clever positioning on Nova's part. In fact, Remake was a little split from the rest of the team in a bad way. He was all alone in the mid lane. But RSG didn't take advantage of that, and that's a very sloppy macro call from them. They need to know where Remake is every fight, and they need to be targeting Remake. Otherwise, they're going to keep losing.
I think we're seeing some surprising mistakes. Again, the first game really from Nova. Regans, they have tried their best, but we just couldn't quite find that final engage. He took a little bit too aggressive this time again. I think the same problem, right? The Regans are playing a little bit too far up front. They're trying to go in with that Hextech ultimatum, but you don't really have that follow-up. The tidal wave was late in that fight, so again, you don't find the picks that you need. And Nova strike it straight on back. Again, they jump in, sweeping. Now, once again, coming through from CD, but Nova, they just don't really care, because as long as they don't get locked up, as long as the rest of the RSG members aren't there, you can't really find that crucial engage. They're not giving it to them because they're playing at arm's length and they're pushing RSG back.
Really good control here as this Drake comes up now. RSG will start the Dragon, and this is what Nova are really going to struggle to fight. Oh, what a cask!
That was good, but then Hextech ultimatum also cancelled. They forced him away. Will the Smite land? Lee Sin gets it this time. They jump, they split the fight. RSG on the backside, though. Akali's found a double. They were left alone as the Drake was taken. Lovesea walks in between the turrets. They'll get away, and there's a beautiful extra few kills here on this Akali, getting so down fed.
Nova, though, get everything they need in the Drake and the teamfight win. It's a little scary for them that Lovesea is working up a gold lead.
Run it again.
Does Remake survive this?
They should indeed. He's still got a Chain of Corruption there available to him. If Lovesea does decide to go in, the piercing arrow was enough to push him back. The turret is really what they're after. Again, towards the bot side, I like Fit there, Garen trying to push in that lane. But again, it's just brilliant answer for pressure. You've got Long trying to defend that turret. Not going to happen. I think that was very risky. They could have gone in. They could have died, but Find was there in the event that that was the case. Also, Gragas rotating up. But this explosive cask, that was beautiful initially to split the fight. But you can see the all-in for the Drake. Garen and Varus weren't even there to begin in that fight with the explosive cask, so as much good as it did initially, Akali found that Shuriken point down. They got the mark, they got the 5-point strike, they were able to run away because actually they split so far.
So this entire game at this point now comes down to a head-to-head between Lovesea and Remake, and it will very clearly be influenced by other players on the map, as there's going to be aid on getting Remake into that backline. I think particularly CD with the Hextech ultimatum is going to be very important, and of course the defense on Remake, the defense to protect Remake is very important. There we go.
Oh, see, almost getting caught out. Redemption will save him.
Very good team
Shilling
play.
was used expired here on their own side, so it will actually attempt to push back in, but it will either only be not even a play here. Is also Ari getting caught up. Will go and Stacy back, piercing arrow does land. That's the kill that you need. Explosive cast back in. That's the beautiful type of cast you need here, TJ, and they take that mid lane for it. Nami Lucian down towards the bot side. Akali only coming out of base. They're going to continue to turn straight towards this Baron.
Yeah, that's everything they needed. Nova turn instantly into the Baron, and they're going to take that very quickly here. With the Baron slain.
1-1. 2K, grand entrance, and Akali takes it.
Whoa.
They left the Baron alone, and at least it misses a second smite, culling onto 2. And Regans Gaming stepping up when it counts. They back through for a third. Timeless with the Baron buff minions. They try to do their best, but Garen chops them down in the eyes, walks away. But they get the Baron buff. They only lose one for it. They're going to push the rest here in, and it's so beautiful. I think the only problem is, of course, it was quick enough to the point where actually Ari and Camille also didn't grab that buff, so it's only on to 2, crucially.
That's wild, because Long had Smite up. He just threw it down too early. And Lovesea, who of course is terribly fed at this point, was just able to weave a Lichbane empowered auto attack in there. I don't think it was even a 5-point strike. It looked like it was just an auto attack to find the Baron.
That blue buff. That feels bad, TJ, when Camille walks in and steals your blue.
So we're getting kind of... Let's take another look, see if I'm right. Lovesea taunted here. Timeless is autoing in. There's the smite, and it was down to 100 HP. That's just a tragic mistake.
Yeah, you can't make those type of mistakes. So if you're gonna go for the Baron, if you're gonna go for that call, yes, they found the picks, they found everything to go for that Baron, but they smite too early again. In the synergy, the shot calling on who is going to burst down that Drake enough for this smite to then take into effect was not there. In RSG, they just capitalized off of that. They can now turn towards the second Drake. It is actually a very RSG winnable game because not only did Akali get fed, but yes, Illusion died. He still got 3 kills. Maybe if you find a pick here, Monster does go into stasis and he will just walk away.
So
coming back in. Don't think it's going to work out for long here. I think they found themselves on the wrong side of the rift. CD will hookshot over the wall. Will look for the kill. No, just going to give themselves up here. It's going to look for Ari, but the charm enough, and it's just an execution down. I just feel it, Nova. They're not playing as a cohesive whole.
Well, their team play on the map is fine. Apart from, I don't quite know why Long was there. Long very obviously tilted after missing the Baron. There's no justification. He was trying to, like, get his blue buff back all alone once his blue buff got stolen away earlier, so just crazy stuff from him. But Nova are just being out-team forward is the most consistent thing. We're kind of getting a sense of both of these teams' identities, and Nova are far superior clearly on their macro movement, on their map play, the way they play around arriving at objectives, pressuring lanes, drafting even.
Not there.
I would say is much better than RSG. But once you get into the team fights, especially once you get into LoveC's individual mechanics, RSG are clearly earning out an advantage and making their plays from that.
CVOTG, I disagree because it's actually often mistakes. Akali initially getting fed was because of Varus, because the Gragas wasn't there in the fight. It was so late into the Drake pit. Yes, the explosive cask was there, sorry, not the Varus, also there. The Garen was so late into the pit that actually they couldn't find that engage ideally for them. Again, the team fighting not really there on the engagements when it comes to the smites, turning back onto the enemies. And the fact that they actually enabled LoveC to get fed because of these mistakes, they weren't heavily controlling these lanes either. Again, it was RSG to control them, nullify the pushes that were coming through. So it's just a brilliant, better job from RSG in this game to continue to find these picks, and they do once more. Culling, again, onto that crucial Gragas member to support. Really no time defensively using explosive cask, but no effect. Will find one. Long stasis won't keep him alive forever. Now gonna be a third, surely, as the G game maybe gets popped back for CD, but they just don't have the damage to cut it. CD cutting him away as well. Hookshot back over. So much escape, and they just cannot find the team fights that Nova here want. I think they've fallen a little bit too far behind in this game.
Yeah, you still need to worry about remake, but I agree, RSG, just numbers-wise, are very far ahead right now.
They're gonna get it, maybe. Ooh. They will know. Go to Lucian. That was 6 health on that Baron. It's still gonna be 1. They can turn the fight. Monster tried to run away. They throw out the spear, throw out a charm. Is it enough for a kill? They do find one straight back. Can they get a second? Tidal Wave trying to help out. They're turning 4-2. And it will find it. Yikes goes in too deep. The team fight wasn't there. Varus wanted to peel away. They do keep the Garen alive. But their kills again go against fine. Go towards RSG. Yes, they lost the Camille. Yes, they lost Timeless, so it won't be a major push in. But look what is coming up next with that Baron buff. The Mountain Elder once more.
So, Nova, again, I like the decisions they make whenever they have time to think about them. But whenever they're forced to make a snap decision, like the play around the Baron there, they're syncing up as the Baron gets low, they're going to use the Varus' poke over the wall, the Varus gets threatened, but they have the plan where Varus flashes over the top and you have heroic entrance there. Just really good play. But whenever you start to see Nova making snap decisions, things go a little bit haywire. The multiple 1v1s thrown Monster's way down mid, not great. Maybe communication issues if I had to diagnose it over and over.
In. Hook shot. Varus is already dead, TJ. Galio on 4 next. No ADC. No mid lane. The Baron comes through. Here the minions are to a third. Now also Garen gonna drop it. It's a Nexus 1-1 in the series as a ace. Nova in game 2. TJ, I agree very much with you though. It was absolutely all RSG in that game. I feel that Nova, to go back to that sense of control, they play a very strategical, very calculated.
Ladies and gentlemen, you would not believe it. We have 1080p. My name is TJ. Welcome back to our co-stream coverage of the LPL Spark Invitational. My name is TJ, joined by the wonderful Wolf. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, but what a series this is cracking up to be,
Can I get like
TJ,
an a woo?
Nova,
Can I like a wolf howl? What do you do?
Oh, what's that?
Do you do like a wolf howl? Is there a bit? Do you have a branding
Oh my
bit?
god. Oh, we went there.
No? I mean, it's fine if you don't. It just, it would be a good marketing opportunity.
It's over, TJ.
Okay.
It's over, TJ.
All
We're
right.
done. No more. Serious mode on, okay? Serious face.
All right. Game number 3. A tied series between Nova and RSG, and for the first time this series, Nova take over to the blue side.
Oh, blue side here, and I mean, what a side here for Nova to take, but answered by RSG, none other than the Gragas. Does the Galio come through? I mean, isn't banned in a world you could see RSG just run back the composition, and Nova ran in game 1 and 2. 50% win rate on that, of course, as Lee Sin, very highly prioritized for Nova. 3rd game in a row, and yes, it will be the Galio. I'm wondering if also the Kali gets, Kali ban away especially. You look towards, I think, other really assassins, potentially here towards maybe the Ari coming in, trying to dive in that back line. Assassin-esque in the sense that you can try to dive there, you can try to find that engage. It's risky though. I think that Nova, they need to try play, I think, with the Lee Sin, potentially here towards one of their lanes, and you need to have that strong carry. Lucian taken away is there, I think, very well played by the fact that you don't want to allow that through to RSG once more.
Yeah, so Nova having to pull out a secondary composition as RSG with the 1-2 pick, go for that Galio Gragas comp that has been 1-2 in so many regions. One thing that's really interesting to me is Lee Sin prioritization, because I agree with this Lee Sin prioritization. I agree with Lee Sin being first pick. I think he's far and away the most powerful jungler in the game. If you don't count Jarvan, Jarvan is more powerful in certain compositions, but RSG never prioritized him. They always let Nova get Lee Sin. So this time, Nova do have the opportunity, the choice to first pick him. They pull him out first pick. Now the question is, where does their other early game threat come from, or do they draft late game and use the Lee Sin to get them there?
I feel like RSG, we've seen this composition before. The Riven does sub in, but the rest of it is game 1, where Nova actually won with this composition. Kai'Sa also being picked up, the Braum there for Nova, answering back with a Lucian. It feels like they're completely swapping sides, just playing the other on the blue to the red.
It's a little different because they don't have the Kai'Sa Lee Sin, right?
Right.
And you so obviously want those two together. Don't get me wrong, I still think Kai'Sa's incredibly powerful. You know, one of the best AD carries, if not the best, depends on how much you value Lucian. So I'm very curious what they're going to pair along with this, given that Olaf and Camille and Fiora, who are the other kind of top junglers right now, are banned away.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting final pick for RSG, and I'd almost it would be fun to see something like a Shyvana here. Give me a team fight.
Shyvana?
Give me a team
We're going,
fight.
Shyvana. In this meta, I don't know if Shyvana really works. I think
we saw Shyvana come out LPL, from the LPL in the LPL LCK show match.
But the Lee Sin is there, right? So you have that early game potential. I think that the Pantheon makes a lot more sense. You have combined now 2 global ultis to jump in. I think the Shyvana is a nice idea. If you can start to stack it through into the late game, you can get the Drakes on board. Then all be a credit to you. You've got a really disgusting Shyvana that just motor cars you down with a Cloud Drake. But actually, the problem of getting to those objectives is the fact that Shyvana inherently weak on that early side.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have liked the team fight pressure. Instead, they've doubled down on pick pressure, which has, of course, been the story of this series. I do think this is the best RSG composition thus far. It's got very good team fight potential in the late game, and they were already winning team fights in the late game, despite, in my opinion, drafting poorly for them. So it's very hard for me to see Nova walking away with this one. If they do, it needs to come from their Lee Sin starting in the first 5. That is the only tangible place on the map where they have an advantage during those first 5 minutes. If the Lee Sin can start lane snowballing, then Nova have a very good shot at this game.
Yeah, I definitely feel that RSG heavily favored. I mean, they were favored coming into this series. Yes, they lost game 1, but it wasn't a complete steamroll through from Nova. They still put up a challenge to the point that it came down to that final Mountain Elder. Mountain Elder this time around went alongside the Baron to RSG very dominantly in game 2, so of course they were able to equalize. And I think that coming into this third game, what Nova really needs to play to do is to play together, right? They need to find these team fights where all of them are together, trying to use those global ultis as a team, because when they start to use it individually, just trying to find those picks for the sake of getting picks, it doesn't work. We saw that in the early game, and that's how exactly that Akali got fed in game 2.
Well, we've gotten here game number 3 of a best of 5 series with a tied scoreline. I've made a Douyu account successfully by tricking my phone into thinking I live in Shanghai. And we got 1080p now. Everything's going well, Highland.
We are ready. I mean, when you put on the 180p, you are tryharding. I mean, I don't know about the players. We are smurfing this series, just to be fair here, TJ.
It has never been a better time to be watching Wild Rift, namely because you can now see all the pixels.
Indeed, in full HD. Wild Rift. Oh, look at that beautiful face, that black hair. Exactly, Nova. That is exactly what you're tuning in for. Never mind, that game is there. We finally do jump into the Rift. Enough nonsense from us as we will head into the battlefield. And it is game 3. Who will find themselves 2-1 up in the series, TJ? I'm sensing RSG favorites.
Yeah, I do really like RSG's draft this game, and we'll know pretty shortly, based on my predictions. I did say Nova need to win in the first couple of minutes. I always metric the first 5 minutes for a Lee Sin. These LPL teams have been farming much more effectively than Western teams. I think that's actually something the Western teams should be really scared of, is the LPL teams are getting a lot more XP out of their map clears. So they're going to be kind of the window for Lee Sin is even smaller, because one of the biggest advantages that Lee Sin has in SEA and the West is that Lee Sin is a terror at level 2. The second he has Sonic Wave up, he's already doing way more damage than anyone else, and he doesn't need his ultimate to be a lane gank threat. That's what makes him so terrifying in the Summer Super Cup. If you go back and watch those VODs, he's easily the best jungler during the Summer Super Cup, the SEA Championship, because he's able to get out into lane in the first 2 minutes and just destroy people.
It was just down. I mean, to the fact that actually also you saw the Lee Sin in this first game, right? You saw them pressure the Ahri. It was nice work, but again, I feel that it's just down to the fact that RSG these lanes, TJ. This is what really is the biggest controlling factor for them, because actually for Nova, they can't really find these pushes that they like, and this is going to have to be something that changes, because at least it needs these lanes to be pushed up to have actually the case where we can find these ganks ideally.
Yeah, I think you also need to just pay attention to the first couple of minutes. And what Long's doing on the map right now. He's going for Scuttler. It's going to be a Scuttler for Scuttler trade. But look at the defensive reset from Love C, the player we've been really impressed by over the course of this series. The clear starts on the top side from RSG, CD getting that side of the jungle clear, then he goes bot side. And because CD is pathing down bottom, Love C recognizes they're alone in lane and goes for an early cheater recall, going back to base, losing out on a couple of minions, but coming back to lane with an item advantage so that they can't be shoved into a vulnerable position.
RSG still, Love C will be pushed on the turret, will catch all the minions for now. They do lose 1, do lose 2 here, so it is a slight advantage there. Also Long gonna kick back. There's the Dragon Rage kick in effect, but Pantheon Grand Starfall does answer back, so CD able to defend. Love C will get away, and that's actually their failed gank, but it does burn down the Grand Starfall. That's gonna be about an 80-second cooldown there for the early game, and then actually is at least in. Yes, she didn't find the kill, but that got that ulti on cooldown. Yes, she's still got a Galio Grand Entrance to be worried back, but is not as global as a Grand Starfall is. And actually, I feel that Lee Sin could just move away down to this bottom side, try to pressure now again. Potentially here, Timeless try pressure S12K.
I don't think you. It's very hard to gank the bottom side because Long doesn't have flash, and he spends it up there. And Timeless is playing Kai'Sa, who is so powerful during these first early levels. This is why you always look for Kai'Sa Lee Sin to be combined. Just because the Kai'Sa auto attacks find more value because of her passive than any other champion in the game gets with her auto attacks. So I don't know about this bot lane gank. I think it's very difficult for Long to do. I do agree with you. I think it's a very good note that Grand Star falls down. That forced a reset from both CD and Love C. And Long was able to steal away, I believe, the entire Raptor camp over here on the top side of the red jungle, taking a little bit of gold away from RSG, and you can see that reflected in the gold currently between the two junglers.
Oh, that's a pick.
We're several seconds behind you on the stream. I apologize. But we are wasting time here for Long. We're not getting what Long needs. That's the very first pick of the first 5 minutes. Ideally, you want 2 or 3. Long is hitting early game impact because of that pick, turning it into a dragon. We're going to have to see whether that's enough to start a ball rolling down a snowy hill, you know?
Yeah, I feel that honestly here, just for RSG, they're struggling to find that real entrance because they do lose that pick. Again, it is just beautiful there from the Ahri, from the Lee Sin to be able to out-rotate. RSG come all the way back from base. They still found themselves in the river before RSG were ready to push. And it's also for the case that actually before this, the bat came through for the Gragas and the Kai'Sa because they were afraid of that gang. The explosive cask had been used and failed, so RSG didn't have that available to them either. And that's why they do have to give away that Cloud Drake. They also potentially here have to give away this top side Rift Herald because Lee Sin already progressing over to their CD does find themselves in the river boat. Garen is also there, and it's about how well really RSG can push this lane, but against Nari is difficult, as there you can see Lee Sin pressuring a little bit forward.
Yeah, pressure coming in. The biggest deciding factor here is going to be how long Nova can roll with this lead, so this Rift Herald is incredibly important.
Rift Herald is going to go away for now towards Nova. It will be smited through, but can he find anything? Grand Starfall on the backside. No, the Braum Shield defensively there to escape and evade the full wrath of RSG. They all get away. Explosive cask slightly not there in time, and as a result, now Nova get a Rift Herald for absolutely nothing here, TJ. And it feels a lot better of a performance from Nova overall in this game. They're playing a lot more as a team. And we said when they play as a team, Nova do look like that better team fighting squad.
Yeah, I mean, their team fighting is always... Like, I again am trying to build a differentiation not between team fighting and macro because I'm not seeing so much that. I'm seeing a differentiation between moments where Nova are having to communicate in the midst of hectic fights and moments where Nova can go in with a plan. And when we see Nova go in with a plan, it looks clean, it looks sensible, and it looks a step ahead of RSG, who we just see there have the weirdest skirmish around that Rift Herald. A very late Grand Starfall, no plan to follow up behind that Grand Starfall. Frankly, a more coordinated team would get a pick there.
I mean, you're telling me here that, well, the LPL, we look the scariest, maybe the scariest team for the Galio, because it is going to be a charm into release in once more. We'll confirm the mid lane. That's going to be a Shelly down. Also, Pantheon forced away. A solo kill in the top lane as well onto Riven. CD going to fall. It's an absolute stomper on to RSG. Regans Gaming, they're falling flat in this third game. Nova, they did something in between this break because they're woking up. Maybe though, Yai's in a little bit of trouble. Killer Instinct will confirm the kill, but does Yai's get away? One more auto attack. Now they find the extra movement speed and do confirm it through. So Kai'Sa does find one solo back, but it's Silver Scrapes really, considering that here Nova, they're already 5k ahead. They've got the Rift Herald used. They got the plays targeted through towards the Lucian. They've also got a Cloud Drake as well, just making it even more difficult to lock them down.
Yeah, I think we're seeing what we saw in game number 1 from Nova, which is this incredibly smart, coordinated early game. And game number 1, if you remember, I said this is going to be a 15-minute game. when we were at like the 12-minute mark, and I was then proven wrong because RSG strung together a series of really good mid-game team fights. So I'm going to put that as the asterisk hanging over my next statement, which is if RSG pull out a team fighting win here, they do have a composition that's really good at that. They do have a composition that's going to do really well in the mid-game, kind of no matter what. So there's the possibility that RSG turn this round off of team fighting. Assuming they don't, we have some more data on what Nova are as a team, which is a team that's really good, really proficient at these macro plays, these set plays off of wave timings.
Over again, just beautiful plays. They just completely out-rotate CD once more. They're just playing at that pace, just slightly faster. They're forcing RSG to be actually Nova's tempo, and that's what you really want as a squad for Nova. They pick up also the Infernal Drake off the backside during that replay. There was no contest. RSG, rightly so, they couldn't really contest that Infernal Drake unless they want to give it over even more gold and end this game quicker for them. Instead, it now will be that turn to the top side. They grab the turret there, they defend the push through from RSG in mid lane. Galio, they do strike in the bottom lane because they do go so far heavily towards there, but even at that point the waves weren't pushed in control, so they can't even grab that turret either with the Braum there and also Garen to defend.
So what do you watch if you're an RSG fan? What are you looking for to turn this around? I would say, obviously, Lovesy, who's been terrifying this series. We saw him really become a team-fighting monster in game number 1 towards the mid-game on this exact pick, on the Riven. He's building a very tanky Riven, so he's going to arrive at the late game and just start absolutely CCing the entire team, finding big 4-man knockups on engage. That's really scary, but it's not going to be the damage. The damage is going to come from, if it comes from anyone, Timeless, who's had also a very good series and is playing Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa doesn't do as well as Lucian currently in mid-late game, but Timeless has been playing really well movement-wise, and Kai'Sa is a movement character. So if you can see Timeless surviving in the backlines of these fights behind the Galio, Pantheon, Gragas frontline, which is a really good frontline, and just landing auto attacks, then kind of the only people that can get onto him are are Ahri and Lee Sin. And that's what the game's going to come down to, is Timeless versus Ahri Lee Sin on that dive, long and fine, trying to gain access to Timeless.
If wave does go wide, their Void Seeker will reveal the vision of the extra Nova third player. They are trying to defend their best, but you can see the push just trying to continue to contest around this Baron pit. They're drawing actually RSG in here because really they don't have, yes, also one position behind, but actually because Nova, they have control over this vision. Look at that top ward and look at that ward in behind the Baron pit. They know every single time that RSG want to move up, and RSG have absolutely zero vision towards this top side. That's what's making it so difficult for RSG to find these crucial engages.
All right, but I'll tell you something. Toxic TJ is coming back out. Nova aren't doing a whole lot with this current game state. And
yes,
it's not like they're up against a time crunch. Because again, late game isn't that scary of a Kai'Sa who's kind of going to fall off and a Riven who's maybe a threat. Although...
Said Toxic. Lovesy does get away. Ignite won't be able to burn him down. Oh, Void Seeker. That wasn't very fun the rest of the team. I did panic for a second there. Long will also flash through the wall. Will able to wall jump away. Just so toxic. I mean, Long, Lee Sin. When you combine it all, I think Riven, Lee Sin, they're probably like the most toxic champions in this game because you can just jump about for so long.
So... yeah, it's horrifying. I hate to play against it. But it's not particularly threatening, right? RSG, that Riven gets big, so what? As long as your Lucian, as long as your Ahri are still online, it's not a big deal in the late game. Nova will outscale, and they will eventually win. I do think they could hit a faster pace here, though. And I'm always critical of that because I want to see teams playing faster. The best in the world, I think the best Thai teams right now would beat this Nova eSports simply because you'd be giving them time to get back into a game, giving them time to make plays on the map.
Exactly.
And if RSG want to get aggressive right now and contest for camps, contest for the opposite side of the objective board, they can do that. And Nova shouldn't be giving them that opportunity.
it feels like Nova, they're just trying to be patient, just trying to play for objectives, but by doing that, they're actually slowing the game down, rightly as you say. The RSG, they're allowing this time. Yes, they're still 8,000 goal behind. Yes, they still can't take a front-to-back team fight, but they can start to scale as best they can towards this late game. They've done very well to hold this tier 1 turret up, but I think at this point, it starts to feel a little bit harder as now the third Drake does spawn in. Ocean, there will be the case. And again, it is going to be a repeat of these Drakes in the same exact order. Elder Mountain will be the case, but I think the RSG, that is their only real hope in this match. Yes, they could grab a Baron, but Baron's not going to do all that much when still Nova are so far ahead that they could just still go for the fight even if you try to push.
And I want to go back to what I'm being, and again, this is like nitpicking. Nova are winning this game. It's very hard for Nova to lose this game. Maybe I'll look like a genius and Nova will throw, but frankly, it would be something they haven't done yet. Right now, they're not making major mistakes. But if I'm nitpicking, if you're allowing me to be toxic, it's not so much even that they're playing slow, because again, they win this slow game. It's that they're not actually playing slow offensively enough.
You're not being proactive,
If you want to freeze out this game, you want to be doing two different things on the map at all times. You want to be shoving in your side lanes. You can see now both side lanes from RSG are actually doing pretty all right. That top lane's been uncontested for a while, just kind of pushing for RSG. So there's no pressure being generated there by Nova, and you want to be clearing out camps. They have all of the tier 1s down. RSG should never get a buff this game. And the fact that Nova are actually allowing RSG to get some of their own camps back is a little worrying, because it means that there's, you know, even gold game on the map, whereas they could just have vastly superior gold gain. This lead is not growing as much as it should be for Nova. Again, nitpicking though, because they're winning this game quite heavily.
I mean, should they win, but they could be doing it better, right? And again, you say back towards these tie teams, if they can slow a game down, they can nullify again the lead that Nova are making by just trying to freeze out lanes, trying to push them away, and not give the avenues that Nova need to continue to find those points of pressure. I mean, Riven doing the bottom side as well.
And if you want an example of a team that's really good at this,
Oh, that is going to be a pig, but they can't find it. Ari will go down. Grandstar fall in. I mean, you wanted to throw. You might have jinxed him. It's still going to be long going in, but love Steve it being caught back lines. Oh, that will be a disgusting jump back through from long. A double form, a third, and as Garen will clear the backside and also see the inside there. Base long goes in golden. We'll just walk back out again. Nexus, who cares?
So, if you want to see a team that's like really good at that freeze kind of play style, it's one team, eSports, actually do it really well. So go and look at their VODs if you want to see really clean play of that freeze play style. Here it is, though. A win for Nova, as it takes a little bit more time than I think I would have hoped, but they do demonstrate their capacity to dominate an early game for the second time this series, emerging as a trait of this team. This is a team that is able to draft to a game plan and then execute that game plan. EP, I'm still very proud of that.
Oh man, that was on sync. That boom was on sync. We got a sound effects ripe here in this stream. TJ is before the game does take an effect. Interesting, an Nami comes through in those ban phases. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I think Nami is quite powerful right now, but I don't think she's pick ban. I think she's very good in certain compositions where you want to amp up specific AD carries, though. And Nova maybe are taking a look at how well Timeless has been playing in this series and adjusting to that.
Yeah, I think they certainly.
There. I don't know if you could hear it.
It's possible, yeah. Oh no! Did you sneeze? Bless you, bless you, my friend.
I actually did sneeze.
You have been blessed.
But I think you could hear that like whole wind up in my voice. I was like about to sneeze.
It happened. It happened. But we've recovered. He is okay. He is still here, guys. So don't worry. He has not fallen down at all. Love C here, gonna pick through the Camille, and Camille I like that they're picking it first. Again, though, the problem every single time I feel that we talk about Camille, and this was the same problem casting back in EU last week. The pick towards the Camille, you just answer it back with a Fiora. You answer it back with picks. It can just blow up the Camille from the Hextech Ultimatum. I like the Camille when it is a counter pick, not as a first pick.
Yeah, I don't mind the Camille. I think she's very powerful because she has utility options as well as pick options. I think that's the big question for me, though, is whether or not RSG are able to use that utility. Because last time we saw CD play Camille, they were just playing it as an assassin.
Yes.
And Camille isn't very powerful if she's just used as an assassin. But the thing that Southeast Asian teams do very, very well is they use Camille for the Hextech Ultimatum's damage reduction abilities. It's essentially a more powerful exhaust. And if you can throw that onto a key carry, it's really big. Here's my follow-up question. Is this jungle Fiora or top lane Fiora? It would be sensible if it was top lane Fiora.
Jungle Fiora is interesting.
It would be sensible if it was top lane Fiora. It would be exciting and rad if it were jungle Fiora.
I've seen Jungle Fioras take games. It's pretty disgusting to watch how they do it. The 1v1 potential is just so brutal. I mean, if you want Jungle Fiora, a team to look at is probably Team Queso there, TJ. They run a really strong Jungle Fiora game. They're known for it. It has been banned away previously by other teams around EU scene. But I don't think that could be the case. I do sense it's going to be back up towards Camille just to try play for a 1v1 situation, try to continue to force out that lane early on. There's also Galio, the Braum, the Lucian all paid through, but the Corki, I like that the Corki comes through in a sense because you don't have to worry about a Camille countering out that carry because they are on the same team issue.
Yeah, I think the Corki's in-fight mobility is pretty good. I do think it's just weaker than the Kai'Sa though during early game. Definitely at scales. Maybe RSG are finally... Oh yeah, they are. This is a full investment towards late game. RSG have finally decided, okay, these games keep going late. These matches keep going 20 minutes. Let's draft to that. Let's play a 15-minute game. And that means this Sona Corki lane is going to kind of struggle early. Oh, what a pick! What a last pick! It's going to really struggle early, because Malphite's coming for you! Big rock boy on the top lane. Jungle. It's a jungle Fiora. What a draft. I am pumped.
Fiora jungle, we get to see why Queso pick this pick every single time they're given the opportunity, TJ. Malphite in the early game going to bully AF this Camille out of lane. Every single time she walks up, just slap her down with one of your rolling blades. And now also towards the bottom side, you're picking into a Lucian for mid who can roam around this map. You're picking a Braum early game. This is full first straight team fighting capability with the extent that coming into that Drake, they're going to win, or they should win, every single lane.
This is a really fun draft. I do have a problem oftentimes with Malphites though. If you build Malphite AP, then you don't get to do anything early, and it's very depressing if your team loses the rest of the map. And you just have no map impact for the first 10 minutes. If the rest of your team loses that map, then you're just vibing and you're a rock and you don't do much. And if you build armor Malphite, then you don't do a whole lot of damage in the late game. So I'm actually going to be really interested to see which way this Malphite goes. This is going to be like the third pro Malphite I've seen. Jungle Fiora.
I love Malphite so much.
Jungle Fiora is also really exciting. I don't know if you know this, but it was premiered in, I believe, Vietnam. There was one player whose name I'm blanking on right now, who was just like, I believe Fiora can be played jungle. And for the longest time, everyone thought he was insane. And then their team made quarterfinals at the Summer Super Cup off of it. And all of a sudden, everyone is on that train.
They're on the Fiora hype train for jungle. I mean, personally as well, I just want to like flex myself and be like, in my solo queue, I love a little bit of Renekton jungle, but there's probably a reason why I'm still in Emerald tier, so...
What's that getting? Emerald? Okay. That's not bad.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not bad. I got to Diamond last season, to be fair. I got to Diamond. I've not played that much. Today we can maybe play later.
You're a high percent. Here we go. Dare to go wild. I was wondering what that slogan was. The LPL always has a slogan. Dare to go wild is a good one. Here we go. Game number 4. RSG at the brink of elimination here from the quarterfinals. Nova, with this win, would knock them out. Spark Invitational, of course, does decide one of those slots to Worlds. These matches, very important.
There's everything at stake here, TJ, and everything to lose for RSG in this game. Of course, if they do fall out, potentially you don't see them at all. Because, well, the LPL is the only real other position here. It is the only other position to get into Worlds. One slot for only the winner here.
How do you feel about these donation and giveaway announcements?
I feel very blessed. I feel like if only
the whale one
if
that
only
went
we
across
could
our
see the
screen was
pictures.
like really doing
I want to see the pictures though. I mean, I love the pictures early on. I want to see like these donations.
It's a clown
I know,
shell.
right?
Look
it's
at
like
that
something
one.
straight out of like Disney. That is.
Oh! Somebody in chat who reads fluent Mandarin, tell me what it means.
Wow. I mean, we got a Naruto like in the chat as well. Just that's the anime is hitting up as well. So it is there. With the faces just they're not on stream either. Fortunately for RSG. Early game Corky, you kind of mentioned it. We're kind of feeling it as well. I mean, Timeless is very much struggling in his lane. We said it, Nova were going to win every lane. Very intriguing, though. They actually, Galio rotating here with a Fiora now down towards the jungle, potentially looking for his pick because they have already pressured so hard down towards the Sona, towards the Corky. But they do retreat. They do hold back on that call. And it will just be the Galio better man to the lane. Ari still there as well. And Lee Sin going to continue on their own blue side. Fiora doing the same.
Paying attention here to the early moments of that bottom lane, you can see the Sona Corky just having really long-range harass, and that's sucking. But once we get past first item, once we get to first item, the Lucian is just going to win this for a bit. Sona takes a long time to come online. Once she does, though, Sona is one of the most terrifying supports in the game. That Shark's got a megaphone. One of the most terrifying supports in the game, with her ability to instantly stun on Crescendo.
These donations. These donations are amazing.
There's 3 of them.
It is the baby shark family. That is exactly what it is. The shark. I need that emoji in Discord. That's what I need.
Okay, also, we've seen a full 2v2 in this mid lane as there's been constant pressure from CD, and Nova has done a really good job of being aware, one, that that's coming, being aware that this Galio is going to be under threat, and 2, responding to it by diverting Long's attention there. This is another indication in a long line of indications that Nova is a team that really understands their draft, really understands how to play the map.
Oh, I see what you did there. We're coming out with the puns in game 4. I see where we're playing, TJ. Is RSG. Also, Timeless going to strike back. But more importantly, that flash still just barely off the cooldown. It will be up for the Drake. So RSG, Timeless, they do have that potential option. Also, is these Drakes just rigged? Because this is the 4th game in a row we've seen Cloud Drake right now.
It's my curse. I apologize. I cast the LCS for the audio only broadcast, the radio broadcast, and every time I'm casting, we get Cloud Soul. So it just happens.
It's you. I see. Yeah. It's even worse than the Max curse onto a team. I mean, he predicts a team. You'll see what I mean later when he does cast. I mean, hold my thought though. CD, he's in a little bit of a world where he doesn't want to be. Crescendo will get him out. 3-man stun. Glacial Fissure now used, and will be over. They strike in, grand entrance. They look for Corky. Corky forced to flash away, but it doesn't matter because Fiora jungle is here. Long going in, will dive over the wall, and they dash away to safety. RSG, they lose 2 S12K times, all for the play. That CD trying to go for the scuttle. They could potentially find it. They could potentially hold him off of the Drake. There was a lot of low health members. And actually, because of that extended fight, RSG have been able to turn it. Yet the Malphite was there, but they don't wish to go for that objective, instead resetting. I feel that is a better play, though, however, because there were those rotating members of RSG. The death time is just a little bit too low. And I don't know how you feel about this, but early game is very hard to punish on these kills and turn it into an objective because you have to be so efficient. I mean, the map isn't as huge as it is on PC, so there is still options, as you can see there, for RSG just to rotate back in.
Yeah, and I think Nova make a good call pulling out then. They've been very good about cutting their losses in team fights. And here it means that they can still contest the Rift Herald, but that is what they need to do, because they lost that Ocean Drake, so they absolutely must win the Rift Herald in order to kind of maintain control of this early game, because if you get too much gold infused into their early game carries over on RSG, they're probably not going to win, but they're going to be able to extend this game past 20 minutes. And if RSG get past 20 minutes, that Sona, Corki, Ari become terrifying. So that's kind of the timer you're playing with.
I just feel like Ari, as strong as she is for the pick, I feel that she is very, very pick-based, but also very squishy. I think this is something that Nova can cap her. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, I like the pick play. It's more solo queue. I think that late game she will fall off more. She is that kind of team fight objective pick, you know, with a charm.
If you're playing a competitive game, and this isn't true for solo queue, but if you're playing a competitive game in a tournament and you're about to pick Ari, just go over and pick Twisted Fate instead. Just make that choice.
In China, they don't care. They don't care, and Nova don't care either. They run in, they will just take this Rift Herald. Fiora does grab it, they sneak it away, but can it get away too? They will. Culling will be enough, and also Remake gonna jump themselves to the wall to safety as well. So RSG, I think it was a nice turn to try. But again, it's at risk of those ultis, right? The Malphite, the Galio, the Braum. There's just a little bit too much pressure on that engage.
But you can see they don't take huge risks. Nobody's ever stepping out into the river. They give ground very easily once they're pressured, which is the right call from RSG as well. You don't win that fight, but you don't have to. You're gambling on the 20-minute mark, so the most important thing here is not to give up too much of a lead.
Well, Camille says otherwise. We'll just look for it, but we'll get smited away by Long. Hextech ultimatum locks him down. No, they confirm it through. 475 gold for the Camille. As Yai's 2v1 helped out 2v2 with the Lee Sin.
And there's the knock-on of that fight they took earlier, as Yai's doesn't have unstoppable force for that fight. Yai's cannot win that fight, and they're free to take it because they baited out the Malphite ultimate with that very passive play up top where RSG didn't really try to get onto the dragon because it wasn't necessary for them, and it buys them more across the map. That's the value of contesting objectives, even if you don't full commit. It's the value of cutting your losses, even if you don't get what you want in the fight.
And again, just the damage reduction coming through from that Camille onto the Fiora. She can't even 1v1 that Camille in that situation, even if she did find herself slightly ahead in this early game. I think still, to note, albeit by a sliver, it is Nova in the lead with that gold advantage. They still have the Rift Herald available to them, so they can put that down. Fiora is able to continue that power spike of gold, potentially into one of those counters. You've got to, I think, look towards potentially fine. We'll find something here on Love C towards, I would say, Remake on this Lucian. You really want to kind of get this Lucian online. You want to make sure it can take over these fights and burst someone down with that culling.
Yeah, Lucian's going to be the mid-game carry, and that's what Nova are still building towards. Look for Nova to really gain control of this game around the 10-minute mark, and if they can't do that, if they can't win the fight around the next dragon, if they can't win the fight that comes up around the second dragon and the Baron, if we go there, then Nova are in serious trouble, because at that point, RSG will just take over this game off the strength of Corki and Sona. So, a little bit of a timer now ticking for Nova with that win from RSG, with that pick they found. They've kept the gold lead very close. They played this very well.
That's the unstoppable force. So we're in a grand entrance over the top. It is a full-on dive, but Nova, they found nothing off of that TJ, despite how beautiful that was to counteract the pick from the Ari. Maybe they find that pressure in lane, but again, look at Timeless's burst damage. Remake getting chunked down to half HP. They will secure the Drake. You've got to imagine, I wasn't going to say that, but their CD does enter on in. The pressure is there long, trying to find that poke. The sweep from Love C will confirm it away, and a second Drake from the Sona. I mean, we talked about that late game here, TJ. I think it gets a little bit scarier when you multiply that with those objectives.
Yeah, really, really well played by RSG to just give ground when the Galio Grand entrance comes in, where all that pressure comes in. You give ground. You say, we do more damage at range. And so, what are you doing with a Galio Malphite combo? That's not going to one-shot these players. They're able to disengage, play back, win the poke battle, and you're now at a game state where this Lucian is struggling to keep up with the CC in the front line, is struggling to find value following up on Nova's engage.
He's behind.
And has done for several fights in a row, which, as you're noting, means that this Lucian just doesn't have the raw stats, is falling behind the Corki, and that jeopardizes this mid-game win condition, which is maybe why we're sending the Rift Herald here topside without the gold going on to the Lucian, because that's the obvious place to put it, but Remake does not get that Rift Herald bonus gold.
I think as well, considering it was also timing out, it had been taking quite a while ago, so we had to use it somewhere. The top lane was really where Long was, so there was only one option for it. Guys, as well, we'll continue to push out that lane. Lovesy will look for the sweep. Will we go for the Hextech Ultimatum, though? We do find a knock-up. They will go for the kill. It will be the grand entrance in. They could look for the turn. It will defend away, guys, for now, but they force out ulti for ulti, but a global used by Galio to defend.
And really good pressure from RSG in mid benefiting from that, because they go, okay, Galio's bottom, Galio can't return, Malphite's backing, we can shove in the wave mid, we can keep this pressure going.
Sonic Wave into the kick, and that will be another on in. And unfortunately, this time away, it will be the Galio. Won't get any help from the rest of their team. It is slightly
this is
slow
a
to the uptake.
culling. What is that, Lucian?
that was something we hide on the camera, TJ. we put like a little black square over
that. More pressure will come in here against this turret, and it's just gonna fall. And if you save the Lucian ult, you can use it to clear a wave there. You can use it to force them off the turret. But Remake throws it out instinctively on the counter engage to try and scare them away from the turret, which doesn't work. Terrible angle, no CC. And it has knock-on effects. I'm going to be harsh. I'm from now on calling out bad cullings, because I've seen too many EU and NA players in particular get away with it. Lucian players just throw cullings out like they're candy on Halloween. Everyone gets a Tootsie Pop.
I mean, right, exactly. It's just culling for days, using culling on waves. You do see it. I think that it is a very, very impactful team fight ulti. It needs to be used there. I mean, you can see Remake even using it once more just to push that wave out, just for a little bit of extra strength. Lubsy, I mean, maybe you find themselves in a situation you don't want to take, because it could be a collapse. This guys will be a 1v1 situation, now doubled up by Braum, but also Camille, very, very evasive again. Hook shot once more. We'll push out the lane on top as Lucian was there to answer back. Fjord also going to re-push it back down.
Sorry,
Mountain Drake is up.
This is Archangel's staff first item for Sona, so she's going to be doing a pretty disgusting, especially with the follow-up on this build. If I'm not mistaken, there's going to be a pretty disgusting
A lot of mana.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going into what is just going to be as much spam of those buffs as possible, right? To allow so much extra mana that the Archangel staff does give. I mean, it is the mana item to go for, but AP... It's interesting to me. I don't know if that's the right decision. I feel that maybe something around more healing could be better here for the Sona.
Here's the thought process. Sona right now, I think, actually provides more value offensively than she does defensively. The healing is going to be pretty decent. I'm going to hold this thought. This is an item discussion. There's a Drake up. CD starting it now. Nova roaming in the contest. They need at least a Drake during the first 15.
Still, it will be RSG. They just take it. There's no contest whatsoever, TJ, and it's 3 Drakes.
Okay.
Three Drakes
for
the rest of RSG.
TJ. This game's over. We're going to game 5.
Oh, it is. It is very much over. I mean, you pick an early game composition. You don't get a single objective but a Rift Herald because it was RSG starting it. Maybe they find one pick onto Love C, sure. But even he gets over the wall. It's just a feels bad man out. Feels bad man. He goes in for the sweep. He doesn't care because he knows that RSG, they're just too powerful at this point. Fine, stuck under his own tower too.
Wow. Just real rough. This is going to be the turret crumbling up top as Timeless is now doing significant damage.
Really get this?
Oh
my days, Timeless. He's chunking health bars. Fine goes in, only to jump back out again. They maybe find Timeless here. They do pick him apart. Grand Entrance back in, does knock up CD. But look in the backside, Camille is here. And they strike straight on back. Culling is not enough. Your shots are not enough, Lucian and RSG. They win a fight. This is over AF. If I've ever seen a game to surrender, Nova, they're clicking that button right now.
Okay, but never press the surrender button, especially in your own solo queue, because people throw games all the time.
Don't press it. Please don't press it in my solo queue matches. There's many throws. I know, right? you're praying, and that will be potentially a knock up there. I think it was a Hail Mary. Nova had to steal it if it had gone their way. I mean, it only goes to Braum anyways. I think it was very risky overall. Nova, yeah, is very fortunate that they do leave him enough to get away with his life. But now the Baron buff. We're heading 60 minutes, TJ. We're heading to that late game. You said 20. I think they're already there by this point.
Yeah, I mean, Nova just got nothing done during their sweet spot, which is, you know, the 10 to 15 mark. And if Nova had gotten things done during the 10 to 15 mark, this game would still be theirs to lose 15 to 20. But because RSG actually took a gold lead during that 10 to 15 mark, there's just no way back into this. And you can see the
half the HP.
Yeah, you can see the late game I was forecasting really coming out here. The combination of Sona and Corki is always disgusting. Sona and Corki just combine so well come late game, and they both can take care of themselves with their movement speed in the middle of team fights, and then you use the Sona to amp up that movement speed, and it gets real gross.
Now Inhibitor in mid lane will fall now bot lane Inhibitor as well to fall too. Is another wave of Baron minis will be pushed in. The only top side push there available to Nova is the entrance in will be a 3-man knock-up, but we can't find it. Dragon Kick not quite there. With the rest of the CC, they don't wish to go for the invade. And instead, it will just be 2 Inhibitors. And I think what you can imagine here is RSG just to gain that late game potential, stacking around really for this Drake. You can see it really coming up in very shortly here in this game. And I think that once this Infernal Soul goes over towards them, it's going to be that 12% damage buff that they've behind. It's also going to be the true damage combined with all the Drakes. They're going to not only half health, they're going to literally one-shot anyone they are able to poke down.
Yeah, really, really well played by RSG this game. This is my favorite RSG performance yet, and I think it's mostly because they just built a composition that they drafted a composition that works for the style of game that they're playing. Because my biggest criticism of their draft was they were drafting a composition and then not playing to it, and rather than drafting a composition and then playing to that composition,
Oh, they are going in, but here's the damage. Grand Entrance on top. They do find one. Can they blow them up? Nova are trying their best, but they just don't have the damage enough. And unfortunately for RSG, they look to take the fight, but the crucial knockups were there. Camille wasn't in the fight. Now they turn their attention, but it still will be one going down. Braum will fall, and they do have the defensive capabilities of the Vampirism of the Mountain Drake, but it's still not enough for now. It is a turn. Galio will get away. This is 5 for the Infernal. Hookshot could come over the wall, but instead it will be Lovesy to start this Drake up, but pushing them all back. Ari Charm explodes Galio out of the rift, and now also Culling used just to clear the mini waves. I mean, RSG, Infernal Drake, who are about to witness if Long does not get to steal a century, the entirety of Nova get dropped.
Yeah, there's just no way in here for Long. He is winning the 1v1. Drake should be taken during this time, but they actually fell off of it.
Oh my days!
From RSG. And now I don't think anybody gets this Drake. You do have Lucian here, but the jungler needs to recall, so Long absolutely can't tank it. Just a tragedy on every front happening there. RSG,
yeah.
Like I said, very much drafting composition that plays to their style as opposed to vice versa. And I think you see a little bit of it there, where they're not entirely sure how to protect their backline SS12K doesn't hit his stun, doesn't hit his crescendo. And
They're
because of
going
that,
for it.
they're
They're going for the base.
They're just gonna force.
RSG, they're just going to force that base. They are not getting enough done. No, Find is able to clear the wave out. It's going down to 2,000 HP. They can't find a steal. It's not enough. Grand entrance back in. Another knock-up forces the stasis. It is El Infernal, though, taken, but it's the base that will get dropped. RSG blow up the Nexus, and they take the Infernal Drake, but RSG, they say TJ, they take the game.
Spark Invitational's first match being broadcast here on an English language co-stream goes all the way. My name's still TJ, joined by one Highland Wolf as we do continue to broadcast this best of 5 series between Nova and RSG. And we've built a bit of a narrative here, Highland, out of Nova's early game.
Yes, Nova, very early game focused. They love to try build those gold leads, love to try focus around objectives. But we look back at game 4, that wasn't the case. They built their most early game composition yet, but it was the worst early game through from Nova yet as well. And RSG built an insanely late game composition and steamrolled over the macro objectives, taking 3 Drakes. Maybe, yes, in a world where Nova didn't have inhibitors turned down, they take that Infernal, they could maybe turn, but it doesn't matter. Corki runs down that base just too hard.
So Nova, everything on the line. What do you draft here in game number 5? I've liked Nova's drafts a little bit better over the course of this evening.
Galio for RSG. They have to keep Galio, I think, for RSG. This is interesting, though. Darius picked up for the first time in the series. As a will gift away the Galio. I think also Gragas probably going to go towards Nova. I would probably imagine, if not maybe a mid laner. If we've seen Lucians, we've seen Aries, could be the case here as well.
Yeah, so the Nova composition, it's interesting. They're drafting instantly for this team fight. They're drafting instantly for a mid-game presence that we haven't seen from Nova yet. And RSG are able to match that. They prio the Lee Sin for kind of the first time this series. We've seen very low prio from RSG on Lee Sin relative to how important people think he is. And they do get this Darius for the first time because Nova have to ban Vi Fiora to counter their jungle threat and Akali.
I just feel that Nami and Lucian, the extra movement speed Lucian is going to get when that tidal wave does pass through him, on top of the fact that it does knock up the insane slow, is really going to hinder the movement of the hook shot from the Camille, of also the Ahri dashes that are able to take into effect. Those abilities to get away, much more important in how now Nova skirt around those team fights. So also the Lee Sin early on, you feel that RSG be still trying to pressure that early game. Darius and the same going to be that top side bully. Riven is an interesting one in the sense that again they're going towards the team fight. So again trying to find that dive through on the front line with the Riven. Couple now with the Galio dive, grand entrance when the Riven goes in. I think you can see very clearly how Nova are wanting to fight. But I do worry that again, if they fight around these objectives in the jungle, the tidal wave, the apprehend all into together with the armor breaking into the Lee Sin, dragon kick into the culling with illusion, you can see that if they do try to dive, it's very strong. And as well, the Ziggs being left in towards the last pick, very surprised. I kind of forgot that it even was available because it usually is banned out every single time, and it just makes it so scary of a composition because Ziggs is probably the most oppressive mid laner you can probably pick in Wild Rift currently.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that Ziggs goes as well, because you do have a little bit of flexibility between Lucian Ziggs. I expect it mid, but you could flex it. The most important thing is that we have mid to late game team fighting comps from both teams again, which is, I think, the first time this series both teams have been equally strong, in my opinion, towards late game, which is, I don't know, gonna lead to a banger. That's my prediction. I think we go late. I don't know if it turns out the advantage. I think I probably give late game edges to RSG. Before we get into
Yeah.
game, though, I need to show something off. Let me throw over to our handsome faces
Okay.
briefly. I am currently wearing a Nova eSports jersey.
Oh my days,
when
we're flexing.
they
Wow, would
broadcast
you look at
in
that?
or in AOV. That's an AOV Nova eSports jersey. So ripping the sweatshirt off.
Look,
My
I've got the
loyalties are
LPL.
apparent. Go Nova, game 5, close it out. Woo!
I've got the LPL logo though. I mean, you kind of gave it to me, but I'm still gonna flex it, and I'm still gonna flex what I can here, because unfortunately, it's all I've got. It's a little bit of shame here, but RSG, they do have everything now to come back. Game 4, they took such a dominant win. I feel that again, this final match is decided, TJ, by around these first 2 Drakes, I would say. Come the mid lane, we kind of already experienced and we already kind of know who's going to win that matchup. It's all down to if we remember that if Nova can take these early game skirmishes. I think that Nova, they do have a very disgusting team fight composition in the sense that they have a lot of peel. They also have a lot of potential dive on in with the Darius and the Lee Sin going to be insanely tanky late game. But I do worry because it is a also very equally strong RSG team fighting composition where they have been that team fighting team better than Nova.
Yeah. And that was kind of where I was going, which is that yes, I do think these compositions are equally impressive in the late game, but these teams are not equally impressive in the late game. Nova have repeatedly blundered at those final hurdles as their snap decision-making at chaotic situations looks a little vulnerable to exploitation. Here we go with Nova, though, and they do have advantage during the early game down bottom. This Kai'Sa Galio is going to be relatively safe from gank pressure. You're not going to really see a Lee Sin be able to disrupt that. So what can you do with that Kai'Sa first 5? Show me something sick. Start a snowball rolling. Put Timeless behind. That AD carry duel has gone Timeless's way this entire series. If Remake is going to change that, now's the time.
Every time Timeless has been on Lucian, I mean, it clearly is his comfort pick. They've been able to snowball as best they can. They were able to win out one. They almost won out another. I mean, had they actually won that initial time they picked Lucian, we wouldn't even see Nova on this stage currently. Nova has to respect this, I think, as well, to an extent. Yes, you can be aggressive with the Kai'Sa, but also nerfs really kick in right at this point as well. The mental capacity here that really Remake has to try to go in for these dives, knowing that 2 times before they have struggled again and again against Timeless on this carry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Oh, this is good. Timeless called out by a taunt.
Yeah.
Doesn't get that final auto attack. That's actually kind of sloppy. Kai'Sa, you take the auto attack trade because the only thing Lucian can do there is chunk you for what, a quarter of your HP with the full combo. You do more than that on the completion of the full auto attack trade. So I would have liked to see Remake step up into Timeless there. But it doesn't matter much. They probably weren't going to get the kill either way because of the roam from CD. And the fact that they have the pressure does mean that CD roams down into that bottom lane. So it's a waste of CD's time either way. They spend the time just kind of auto-attacking Krugs, trying to get some gold back. And the entire top side of the map is being run currently by Long, who's benefiting, is going to steal away the Krugs and probably just reset. That's depressing. Long doesn't get anything for it. I was hoping
you just want to see the early game, right?
Just out.
You just want to see the early game aggression. You just want to see someone go in for these kills. I think that again, it comes to the fact that we are in game 5. These teams are playing to an extent very respectful towards each other. We have to really look towards that 4-minute mark, TG. That's where the fights will happen. That's where we will see the objectives start to show cracks and weaknesses in the team that just cannot take those. And that's where we're going to look for the leads. I mean, the goalies as well, dead even to this point. Lanes unimpacted by their junglers.
I mean, one of the things we really should be paying attention to is the current pace of jungle advantage. And with that kind of awkward running around the map from Long, CD has actually
Yes.
built out a pretty massive gold advantage for this early game. It's now hovering around 400, 300, depending on the moment, which isn't going to manifest into an item lead instantly, but it is going to mean that he's out on the map with item parity a little bit faster, which is what you can see here. And that's going to give CD the room to play here. I believe he is unspotted in this bush.
Oh, yeah, it has been caught out though, and now the complete here kill should come through. The dunk, not
Bleeding?
quite enough though.
Very
He
passive.
does live, but not before the Mega Inferno Bomb does land down and will push him into the river. His Scuttle will be confirmed topside, but a Drake is confirmed through from Nova. So yes, they lose one, but they're going to trade objectives. I think in this situation, though, the Rift held slightly better. Yes, you still get the tankiness throughout the entirety of the game, but it's only going to be a sliver of tankiness as the Mountain Drake being up first, and you can get a lot more by opening up one of these turrets with the Rift held.
What an incredible lane gank, though, from RSG. First of all, CD sneaking into that bush there, having the patience and the timing to wait for Lovesy to start the play. Second of all, the flash insec from CD as he lands the Sonic Wave, gets up close, then flashes over the top. I need to see another look at this play. Watch CD on this collect. In, flash, kick. Beautiful stuff. And then they deliberately do not finish this kill so that they can pass it over to their mid laner, so that Ziggs becomes more powerful in the late game. Everything about that is picture perfect from RSG. That is one of the cleanest solo ganks I've seen yet in Wild Rift. Just very clean stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when you pick the Ziggs, if you're going to take it, it's been banned out 4 games beforehand. You know that you have to put them ahead. Already the Rod of Ages, the Ionian Boots as well locked in. Similarly, therefore, the Ahri is keeping up in gold because Ahri is innately very strong in the early game, can continue to anti-push the waves away from Ziggs as well, as much as he does back to the Ahri. And as well, also, it is the Lee Sin continuing to support this Darius top side. I think it's not only scary that the Ziggs is getting ahead, but you have to note that the Darius, if the Darius can start to snowball a lead as well against the Riven on the top side, is such a scary front line that has to be dealt with, even if they build tank, which will expose so much resources from the RSG team that actually they have nothing really left when it comes to still diving onto a very evasive Ziggs, onto a Lucian that can still run around the map, into a Nami that just slows you down into nothingness.
Yeah, this is just scary map state for Nova. But they do have a little bit back to them, of course, in that first Mountain Drake we talked about, and in the fact that the side that got shut down was the Riven, which isn't great. You want Riven to be online, but you have a lot of game to work with for that Riven. You have a lot of games still ahead of you. The side that needs to be gaining gold early and needs to be getting pressure early is actually out ahead. There's a massive gold lead, of course, to that Ahri and the Ahri v Ziggs lane. Very hard for Ziggs to keep up because of the kill pressure that Ahri can offer during the first 10. Like you can see here, Monster just has to be back behind turret as finds one charm, gets a kill. And then the other thing you have is, hey, we still have Remake down bottom as this Kai'Sa, and you're not past Prime Kai'Sa window yet. We're not going to be out of Kai'Sa territory till about 15 minutes into game, so they should be making
going
these plays.
in. It will be the Hextech Ultimatum, and TJ, they find
There it
2
is.
more Nova. You were talking about them falling behind. Every single time you talk about them, they still come back, bro. Can you just talk about them a little bit more for Nova fans?
Well, I mean, it's that bottom lane that I was literally talking about as the play happened, right? It's, hey, we still have this Kai'Sa. Let's make the best of it. Let's go in and boost Remake's gold. And the second you do that, he's going to start snowballing. You're going to watch here as Remake backs, he's going to get about an item advantage off that. It was a triple kill. So about an item advantage, Blade of the Rune King completed. And this is going to be real scary now for the next 5 minutes or so. RSG will just lack teamfight pressure unless they can play this front to back very slowly, protecting these Ziggs. And that's something that Nova are actually very good at denying with their team composition.
We have the vision now on a Drake. They'll know as soon as RSG do go for that Rift Herald expires for RSG, it will be sent down to bot side. As now it will pressure through the Kaiser onto the Gallo as the Ocean Drake has spawned. RSG, they're looking to try and equalize this one back. They need this. But can the team fight? Will Long go in? They're going hook shot to the wall. Whoa. They're going for the kill, but it's kicked back. Lee Sin does grab it in time. One on one to the Drake.
2 HP away from a smite. That was so close. That was very nearly a steal from Long. RSG did not play that incredibly well. They just got very lucky that Long missed that secondary smite. He had room to play with as well.
Have we seen these smites on Lee Sin before, TJ? Did we see how it worked out last time?
Yeah, Long has been on the losing end of the smite fights all series long, so maybe that's the bet. Where we currently stand, Nova really should have been fighting, in my opinion, for that Drake. It would have been a difficult fight because RSG had defensive lock. But they seed that Drake. They go for a steal attempt, nothing more. They seed that Drake in exchange for boosting the gold advantage. You can see that now across the map. Remake's got a pretty massive gold advantage, sitting around 1,000, a whole 1,000 ahead. And up in the top lane, that lane gold gets stabilized because Yais gets first turret break of the game during that time, shoves down the first turret. So the lead there shrinks, and Yais is still behind, but they'll be scarier because they are playing Riven, who's a little busted. So here's what Nova need to do in the next 5 minutes. They need to take a fight and win it. You have the gold lead. You've set the bowling pins out. Now knock them over.
They just go straight down. Just run it down mid. TJ, is that what you're telling me they gotta do? We just gotta take the team fight? I mean, yes, they could. I think it is risky though, because again, you have the problem that every time you try to engage, the tidal wave just comes out defensively. The Lucian, the Ziggs can both jump away.
Like, this is the problem. It's going to get worse. The Ziggs is going to get scarier.
Yeah.
The Darius is going to get scarier. The Nami utility is going to get better. So there's absolutely no sense in stalling out this game.
How do you engage? How do you engage if you are Nova?
Kaiser, Galio. All one. They have a really good synced engage, actually, with this composition. I've loved Nova's drafts all series long. Hextech Ultimatum into Heroic Entrance into Killer Instinct. And you layer those on top of each other just like they did down bottom.
Oh, but it's going to be a 2-on-2. It will now be Love C. We realize if we have to go back, it's going to be a charming true damage through from the backside of the spear. Ball fine. Will find it. One onto Darius. And they walk themselves away. The turret's going to be still intact. However, Nova, we don't really have to worry here because RSG on back foot, and they still want even more, forcing the flash. That's what you're looking for, particularly no flash now up until the next Drake. Yes, it will have it then, but until that point, RSG, they're being forced now to play very defensively.
Yep, that's where they need it. You got to find down bottom, and it does look like a fair 2v2 to start, but it's an advantage 2v2 to Nova, because as we talked about, this is their game state for this composition. They do have a lead right now. And not only that, but it's never a 2v2 for Nova because they have a Galio. And as long as the Heroic Entrance is up, they will always have player advantage in a fight.
Still, though, you have to keep in mind, still, there is the ulti for the Ziggs, so it is still the Mega Inferno Bomb. It's not yet to the extent of the Galio.
Like, he spent Mega Inferno Bomb in that fight, and it is just back up.
Yeah. The cooldown is very, very short indeed. It's about a 30-second cooldown come to the late game once you get all the cooldown reduction on board. They're also building towards the Rabadons, I do believe, next for Monster. So a big potential fight here is also could unfold around the Infernal. Come if the Ziggs can put that gold back in.
It is an Infernal, which means that Nova need to take it. They must fight for this Drake. And RSG, I don't think it's as dire for them, but they very much want to poke at this and see what happens.
They do want to poke. If they can steal it, it could be over. We might have found one off the backside. The Galio getting caught out. Will redemption? Yes, it does save. But look at Liang. Splits them all apart. Now, grand entrance in. It's a confirm onto Lucian. The target was true. Into the second, but they knock back. Rise for now. They do have to back away, but they found a pick they need. No ADC on the rest of RSG, but they still will go in anywhere. Potential Sonic Wave dive on in, but Riven already secures. And RSG, they're on the back foot. They still want to pressure for more. They might just find themselves get caught out in the fight. Charm does miss. And again, the reset. RSG do not want to pull. It isn't, yes, as dire as it could have been had actually RSG stolen that.
Let me be clear. It is now.
Yeah.
This is...
It is now. It's a 5k gold lead now at this point, through from Nova.
It's a 5k gold lead, and it was a shutdown onto Timeless, which is very important because Timeless is your bridge into Ziggs being scary. Now it is kind of all on Ziggs. It is now kind of all on that mid laner. And that team fight comes out of Timeless's sloppiness. I don't know if it was bad communication. I don't know what the call was, but he jumps over the wall right into a Galio taunt. And that means that all of the cooldowns you want to use to win the fight are spent defensively instead. I'm going to assume Love C is dead here and talk over it.
They do get away. Will be the turn. Unfortunately, the FBI's are kind of get caught, but over the Ari is there. The Toxic Charm indeed. And Nova find themselves a double. Lucian now falling again, and it is 100% on Monster. But even Monster here, TJ, is behind. Actually, Ari statistically has now at this point 800 to 900 more gold over this 6.
Which is a very, very good sign for Nova. And I want to talk a little bit about watching team fights from like a shot calling perspective, from a team captain perspective. The thing you need to be paying attention to, and this is very applicable to your solo queue, is what are the major fight-winning cooldowns on the other team. And when you look at RSG and all of the engage goes wrong and they spend Tidal Wave and culling defensively, then you are going to win that fight every single time. And Nova get that for almost nothing. Yami took like half his HP, and that's alright because Galio can back off and still cast Heroic Entrance, provide the same amount of value. So a very positive start to the fight because those cooldowns get burned early.
Good! It's a sword. I love these donations. I want to see what the rest of these images are. Low key here, TJ. I kind of.
Anime girl a little bit ago, and I was trying to work out.
Maxman would be proud. Maxman would be proud. Is here also Nova?
Weeb. I was trying to work out because I'm not a weeb, whether or not it was an anime girl from anything.
If you talk anime with Maxman, you're gonna go down a very long spiral.
I'll be
TJ,
sure to
you have to be careful. You have to be careful. Nova remake is called out. Now Aka Prison into Tidal Wave, but Killer Instinct straight back out. The moves are there. It's like a beautiful dance. As now also, guys, just with a help of Fine will confirm one on solution. Timeless, we've seen really strong. Hold my thought. Almost Lee Sin getting the GA pop would have fallen as well. Had massive Lucian games, but now in this game, he just feels like he can't have that impact. They're trying to rely too much on the Ziggs to carry, but at this point, we are so far behind. We are 13,000 gold behind. Cloud Elder is up with the true damage buff of the Infernal, multiplying its effects, multiplying also now the fact that the Mountain Drake is there into the true damage too. They're not going to do even more. They don't even need that sphere because the charm would probably still one-shot come this true damage anyways. This is the end game objective that Nova are looking for, and they're not going to give it up. RSG, they're pushing in, but we need a miracle.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't want to say it's impossible. I think that there's no way that RSG get back in this unless you fight 4v5, okay.
No. Unless your GA gets popped on the jungler, you can't get into the pit. It gets taken away. They do find one, but look at find off the backside. The movement speed is there with the Elder buff. They've Hex Tech down one. They blow up two in the backside. Galio was dead as well. Lee Sin down. Back into the Summoner's Pit they go. All seeing black and white here. It is Nova who will progress into the semi-finals, TJ. It's Nova who take down the favorites of RSG in a 5-game thriller.
Nova, not traditionally an endemic Chinese team that they run. They are, of course, a Chinese organization, but across the history of mobile esports, they've typically run teams from outside of China. That changes here in Wild Rift as they are running a Chinese team, and so far, absolutely destroying, demonstrating a very high skill ceiling in terms of their macro play, in terms of their understanding of the game. They had good drafts all series long. RSG were able to push them in terms of the team fighting. RSG pressed them to the limit in terms of the micro, the mechanics.